Goldstein. I'm streaming live tonight in multiple places. Hello, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram. What's up, my friends? I have been absent for 3 nights, and I know that's what's going to do to viewership. Goes woo when you disappear. So hopefully you all have caught up on chapters 1 through 12. And if you haven't, you can go backwards on most of those channels I already mentioned. And you can catch up to where we are in this book, Freak the Mighty. We are reading tonight, chapter 13 together. So good evening. Maybe it's good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, welcome. And I am reading a chapter a night until I finish this book, and then I'm going to switch it up to some different children's books, younger ages, some of my favorites that I used to read to my girls when they were little. They're no longer little. They're quite big. And the only thing I don't love about streaming in multiple places is I can't see everyone's comments. So that kind of like deters me from conversation, which I'm used to having when I'm reading a book like this out loud. So if you have questions and you want me to answer them, I will pick up the chat after, in case you're wondering. And if you're, just so you like step into my world a little, I'm reading it to you, my friends, but also some of my friends are my students and clients and former students and my college students. And those students are many of which are future teachers and future criminal justice warriors. And they're learning from me how to be effective and use engagement in the classroom when they see me in person classes. Blend Flex model, rocking that model on my end. And this is me showing up. So I will be here 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on those 4 channels that I mentioned in the beginning. And I will just finish this book. As I'm reading, I'm kind of, sometimes I'll slip into like the teacher talk, and but it's the same kind of talk that I hopefully like, I just read as if someone's trying to understand what's going on with me. And hopefully the way that I do that makes you understand it. It'd be awesome if you could like read the book with me, if you had it. If you want to like pause and order it and come back later. I don't know, just saying. So this chapter is called American Chop Suey, chapter 13. Now, vamos a empezar. Let's begin. Hello, welcome to Bedtime Stories. Here we go. So I used to think that all the spooky stuff about Friday the 13th was just a pile of baloney. When did we go into quarantine in my neighborhood? Friday the 13th. Yes, it's true. That sentence is ringing true for me right away. But now I'm getting my own personal introduction to what can happen. It's October. It really says that in the book, and it really is October. Look at the synchronicities we have. It's October, and so far things have been going pretty good. Better than I ever expected. Me and Freak are like this unit. And even Mrs. Donnelly says she's starting to get used to us, which is her way of admitting that Freak is about twice as smart as she is, and for sure he's read more books. She keeps saying stuff like, Kevin, we know you know the answer because you always know the answer, so wouldn't it be nice if someone else got a chance? For instance, your friend Maxwell. Freak goes, he knows the answer, Mrs. Donnelly. Yes, Kevin, and I'm sure you're correct because you're always correct, but for a change, I'd really like to hear Maxwell speak for himself. Maxwell Kane? This is dumb because this is dumb because what does it matter if I know the answer? If I don't know, then Freak will tell me, and he'll say it in a way that I can understand, which is a lot better than Mrs. Donnelly can do. Let me pause there and just speak for a moment. Teachers, Students would much prefer their peers explain it to them than you or me. And I'm talking to myself. I'm an educator. So this is what the kid who thinks he's dumb says, that even if I don't know, Freak will explain it to me in a way until I understand, a way better than my teacher can do it. This sage on the stage thing, the robots that we have right now in education, it's getting scarier and scarier. Okay, so what do? I just shrug and smile and wait, because I know she'll get tired of asking me and move on to the next. As a matter of fact, I do know the answer. The reason Johnny Tremaine got mad and hateful is because he burned his hand in a stupid accident. And I know that because Freak has been showing me how to read a whole book. And for some reason, it all makes sense. Where before, it was just a bunch of words I didn't care about. So this is my jam in life, is I like bringing words and reading and books to life for teens and adults. I love giving the gift of reading and writing to people who typically don't love either or. And that's what Freak is doing for Max, is showing him that if it doesn't make sense, it's because you're doing it wrong. And if your teacher is giving you work that doesn't make sense, it's because they are doing it wrong. You should be learning at a level of reading that is at your independent reading level. Otherwise, it's going to be too easy, which is boring, or too hard, which makes you give up. Am I right? So knowing where you are and how to improve your reading, we learn to read one at a time. And Freak taught Max how to read. And my jam is teaching people how to read. And then on top of it, this is about my reading skills tutor, Mr. Meehan. See how that worked out? He says stuff like, Max, the tests have always shown that you're not dyslexic or disabled, and this proves it. As you know, my personal opinion has always been that you're lazy and stubborn and you didn't want to learn. So if you're hanging out with Kevin somehow improves your attitude and your skills, that's great. Keep up the good work. Hold up a minute. Let me just pause the button right there. If a teacher is calling you, or a tutor, or an adult, even your parent, your grown-up, is calling you lazy or stubborn, I just want you to know that you're likely neither. You likely lack executive functioning skills. And what that just means is that it's easier to focus on what you want to focus on and what interests you than whatever school or your teacher is telling you to do. And you can get easily off task in the littlest of things that maybe looks like you're lazy or looks like you're stubborn, but really it's just like there's a bridge that you need to cross to get work done. And sometimes there's some planks missing in your bridge and you just stop. And you need... right? Like, that's my way of helping. I work with disabled kids. I wouldn't even call them disabled. I'd call them different. But I have dyslexic kids with ADHD. And they've been called dumb and stupid their whole lives, right? And that's my job, is to get rid of those disempowering beliefs about learning that some teacher who didn't know what they were doing gave you. Can't you all think of a shaming moment in a classroom that a teacher gave you, a moment they gave you that made you feel like crap, right? And the difference in my classroom, and I think what's the difference is for me, the reason I have a very successful reading and writing business that I teach people how to read, is because I get that it doesn't have anything to do with being lazy. It's just you haven't been taught right. Right? And anyone who calls you lazy, that's a lazy piece of feedback. And that's what you need to learn to answer back and say, that's a lazy piece of feedback. I even have to correct the parents sometimes of the kids that I work with. That no, he's not lazy. He's overwhelmed and confused and can't stay on task. And these are some reasons why. And so let's fix those. Yeah, put the planks back on the bridge. So here we go. I go off sometimes like that. I can't help myself. If Mr. Meehan, it was Mr. Meehan, back to the book, who had a word with Mrs. Donnelly, and that's why she finally gave up on trying to make me talk in class and insisted she waits until study hall where she asks me the same questions alone and I tell her the answers. She still doesn't get it, though, because she always goes, but Maxwell, if you can speak to me, then you can speak to your classmates, right? She still doesn't get it. Wrong. Big difference. I can't explain what it is, except my mouth shuts up when there's more than one or two people and a whole classroom full. Forget it. He's a kid, remember? The word he's looking for is anxiety, right? He gets anxious. He gets stage fright. Okay, you're shy about public speaking, but how does that apply to writing down the answers? If you can read it, you can write it down, right? Wrong again. The reading stuff freaked helped me to figure out by showing how words are just voices on paper. Writing down the words is a whole different story. No matter what Freak says, writing the stuff down is not like talking, and my hand feels so huge and clumsy. It's like the pencil is a piece of spaghetti or something, and it keeps slipping away. In my brain, because that's my background, this child has dysgraphia. A lot of kids have dysgraphia, and it's like, don't waste your time trying to perfect their handwriting. Give them a piece of technology. Let them type their work. Let them speak their work. If they have the answer, if they understand, what does it matter if they can write it neatly on paper? Like, huge and clumsy. That means his fine motor skills are off and need work. But while we're learning, we can't halt learning just because his handwriting stinks, right? That's an accommodation anyway. When he writes, the pencil feels like spaghetti in his hand, right? Mrs. Donnelly says, okay for now. She's satisfied I can read, but we'll have to work on this writing thing, won't we, Maxwell? And when she says that, I just nod and look away because inside I'm thinking, forget it. No way. Like Freak says, reading is just a way of listening. And I could always listening, but writing is like talking, and that's a whole other ball game. And if you saw, I have stars and hearts all over that whole little paragraph because it's exciting. It's so true. Hi, thank you for joining me. I see some of you. Hi, Maggie. I think that's Maggie. Okay, so so we're in homeroom. Hold on. Anyhow, what happens first on Friday the 13th? We're in homeroom when this note comes from the principal's office. Maxwell Kane, your presence is requested. Remember that feeling when you get called in the office? It only happened to me a couple of times, but it's like, what did I do? And that's what it says. Gulp. Gulp. So Freak and I get up to go, and the teacher says, no, Kevin, you stay here. Mrs. Addison was very specific. Maxwell is to go alone. Dun, dun, dun. What happened? Freak starts to smart mouth her. Then he changes his mind and he nudges me and whispers, just give him name, rank, and serial number. Deny everything. You aren't back by 1,000 hours. We'll organize a search and rescue mission. So that's Freak being his little freaky self, right? He offers to lend me his dictionary in case I want to try out any big words on Mrs. Addison. But I'm already so worried about being called in alone. All I can think is they're going to put me back in the learning disabled classes. Remember, he got to go to the smart classes with Kevin. Already I decided I'll run away if they do that. I'll go live in the woods somewhere and jump out and scare people. Anyhow, I don't take Freak's dictionary along because my hands are trembly and I might drop it, or Mrs. Addison might ask me a word and I'll forget how to look it up and I'll prove I'm still a butthead goon. Mrs. Addison is waiting outside her office like she does, and she's trying to smile, but she's not really a smiling kind of person, and I can tell this is serious, whatever it is. Like maybe Graham died? I go, Graham, is Graham okay? Yes, everybody is fine. Come in and sit down, Maxwell, and please try to relax. Now, first of all, look at the heart of this kid, of this boy, who I'm sure his teachers, and there's teachers out there calling kids lazy and dumb every day. Stop that stuff. Can't learn if there's shame in a classroom. But yes, he is immediately, not even, is something wrong with my grandma? How sweet is this boy? This big, huge, scary looking boy. Please try to relax. Yeah, right. Mrs. Addison is sitting there in her big chair and she's looking up at the ceiling and then she's looking at the floor. So she's like, and at her hands. And finally, she gets around to looking at me. This is rather difficult, Maxwell. I don't know where to begin. First, let me say we're all very pleased with your progress. It's nothing short of miraculous, and it almost convinces me you knew how to read at your level all along and were for some reason keeping it a secret. I'm not really hearing what she's saying because there's like this little bird fluttering around inside my chest, and it makes me blurt out, "You're putting me back in LD, right?" Mrs. Addison comes over and pats me on the shoulder. I can tell it makes her nervous touching me, but she does it anyway, and she goes, No, nothing like that. This has nothing to do with school, Maxwell. This is a personal situation. Because if I have to go back in the LD class, I won't. I just won't. I'll run away. I will. Maxwell, this is not about your classwork or even about school. This is about your father. My father, which makes me wish all of a sudden I'd done something wrong and Mrs. Addison was just giving me a detention. She takes a deep breath and folds her hands together like she's praying and says, I can't because it won't stay. A request has been forwarded to me from the parole board. A request from your father, Maxwell. Your father wants to know if I don't want to hear it. I jump up and I cover my ears and I'm holding my hands real tight. Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. Don't. What happens when you go nuts in the principal's office is she calls in the school nurse and the two of them are trying to hug me and calm me down. And it's like I'm back in daycare or something. So the mention of his father wanting something from him puts him in total meltdown mode, like little boy like this. Maxwell, Mrs. Addison is saying, she's trying to pry my hands away from my ears. Maxwell, please forget about it, okay? Forget I said it. You don't have to do anything you don't want to, okay? I'll make sure of that. I promise. I swear on my honor. He can't make you do anything you don't want to do. I'm going to make that very clear to the parole board and to his lawyer. Very clear indeed. Finally, I take my hands off my ears, which wasn't really working because I could still hear everything they said. And big surprise, I'm sitting in the corner of the room, down on the floor with my knees all hunched up, and I don't even remember how I got here. It's like I blanked out or something. And the nurse is giving me this cup of water, and the weird thing is she's crying. Have you ever seen anyone have a panic attack? That's what just happened, right? Where you kind of disassociate, the person who's having the panic attack kind of disassociates, right? And they don't remember things that happened. So that's what's happened here. And the nurse is crying, right? I'm sorry, I say, I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't, she says. I cry easy. Don't you worry about it. I do worry about it, though, because if she's crying, I must have hit her, and I don't remember it, which is, if you think about it, is really scary. Remember how big he is, right? Who knows what I might do and then not remember it. So he didn't hit her. You can tell the way she's acting that they're just more upset about how upset he got by the mention of his dad, right? Because nurses don't cry unless it hits their heart, you know? I think the nurse would have been mad if he hit her, or like defensive if he hit her, right? Or just given directions right away. I don't know if you've ever been around people who are like out of control, but like you don't say, I cry easy, don't you worry about it. Like you don't lie. So he didn't hit her, but he thinks he might have, and that scares him. The worst thing happens later in the cafeteria. Freak has this thing about American chopped suey. He loves this stuff. The gooier, the better. You'll never believe a person so small could eat so much. And when he holds up his plate, he always says, please, sir, more gruel. And I always say it's American chopped suey, not gruel. And I look up gruel, and not gruel. I looked up gruel, remember? And he always goes, I beg of you, sir, more gruel. And so finally I go up and get him another helping. When I come back, something is wrong. Freak's face is all red and swollen up, and he's making this huck, huck, huck noise. He can't talk. All he can do is look at me and try to say something with his eyes, and then I'm running to get the nurse. Quick, he can't breathe, he can't breathe. Then she's running as fast as me. Then she's running as fast as me, and she's yelling for someone to call an ambulance. Back in the cafeteria, Freak is turning purple. The nurse grabs him, and she's got this plastic thing she shoves into his mouth, and his eyes are closed up, and one of his legs is kicking. I don't know what to do, and I start hopping up and down in one place. And when the kids keep crowding around, I push them back, and the next thing, Freak's face is starting to look pink instead of purple, and he's breathing okay. Right about then, the ambulance comes. I've never even heard the siren. And Freak is trying to talk in this croaky voice as they put him on the stretcher. I'm okay. He keeps saying, really, I'm okay. I just want to go home. The deal is, once they call the ambulance, you have to go to the hospital and get checked out. That's a rule. That is not a rule anymore, for the record. I don't know if it ever was, but apparently in this book it is. I keep trying to get back into the back of the ambulance with him, but they won't let me. Finally, Mrs. Addison has to come out and pull me away until the ambulance leaves with just the light going, not the siren. You've had quite a day, haven't you? She says, walking me back into the school. It's not me who had quite a day, I say. Kevin is the one. All he did was try and eat his lunch. So remember, he got pulled into the principal's office earlier. He cried basically in the corner, wrapped his head in his knees, said, don't. And then he goes to lunch, and Kevin has this attack where he can't breathe. He gets carried away, and the same person who told him about the dad says, she's being empathetic and saying, wow, you've had such a hard day. And he comes back to her with what? Empathy. He comes back to her with Kevin's the one. All he did was try and eat his lunch, right? When you match empathy with empathy. So Mrs. Addison gives me this look, and then she goes, you're going to be okay, Maxwell Kane. I'm sure of it now. She's okay for a principal, but for some reason, I still can't make her understand that it's not me who had a really bad Friday the 13th. And I swear on the dictionary, it's Freak. If Freak ever tries to eat American chopped suey again, I'll dump it on his head or something. I don't know. Do you think he had an allergic reaction? Why was he having that reaction? You think it was the chopped suey? Tell me what you think. Chapter over. Tomorrow's chapter 14. Cross my heart and hope to die. That's the next chapter. And then we're about halfway there. If you missed any, we're more than halfway there now, actually. If you missed any, go back and watch. Catch up. Have a wonderful night. Sweet dreams. Pause. Goodbye. Thank you for joining me.